Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video I want to talk about this game that came out recently in the last couple of months called Life is Strange, put out by Square-Enix or Square-Enix, and I've been watching gameplay footage of this particular game through the YouTuber JackSepticEye, who's somebody I watch quite frequently actually because he's mad funny, and you know, I just found myself for the first time in a very long time absolutely compelled by a video game. You know, I'm somebody who has to live vicariously through a lot of gameplays and playthroughs through YouTube and such like that because I can't simply afford, you know, the modern consoles and a PC, you know, stuff like that. Completely out of my range to put any of that kind of stuff together. The last most modern console I had was PS3 until it went WiLOD. Never been able to replace it. Lost all of my gameplay throughs of, you know, Grand Theft Auto 4 and MGS4 and Ghostbusters, Mirror's Edge, and, you know, a whole host of games. Final Fantasy 13. I had made it about maybe a quarter to about a halfway through the game. Just about as much of that game that I've heard is actually good. The rest of it is said to not be. Takes a downward spiral from about that point. So I guess I got the most bang for my buck out of that game. But this game is like just absolutely captivating and intriguing. It's kind of a, you know, narrative-based game. It has RPG elements to it, but it's a very much, you know, you sort of choose the fate of your main character as well as characters surrounding her. The main character is Max, and she basically wakes up in the prologue of the first chapter, which is titled Chrysalis, in the middle of this gigantic tornado in Oregon, of all places. We're talking like, you know, I think the maximum size of a tornado is level 5 on the calculable scale, and this thing looks like level 82, something like that, like almost 100. I mean, it's freaking huge, and she's not sure how she, you know, she found herself in the woods during this storm on a hillside with a lighthouse. She's not sure how she arrived there, and she's seeing like a vision of a doe, a deer essentially, and then she wakes up in photography class in sort of college or whatever it is, and she stumbles onto the fact that she can rewind time. In a very basic sense, it kind of reminds me of the anime film The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, but it's a lot more dramatic, a lot more, in certain aesthetics, realistic to modern times in a way. You have the typical school cliques, you know, the popular girls, the jocks, and in the case of Max herself, she's very much sort of the nerdy, geeky girl, keeps to herself to a point, but, you know, I mean, she'd been away, she moved away for a while or whatever it was, and then she came back, and she's kind of mulling over that, you know, she lost touch with her best friend, who is still around, and, you know, part of the story kind of focuses on their becoming refamiliarized. It turns out the friend actually has sort of punked herself out. She's got blue hair, she's got tattoos, you know, she basically ever since her father died, she's just taken a downward spiral, become very rebellious. She had a girl she was palling around with in the absence of the main character Max, and this girl has subsequently gone missing, and there seems to be some ominous ties to what exactly is going on with that. And you have a bunch of characters that are questionable, from photography teacher man who published a book and you know, came back to Oregon from New York where he had this big, you know, famous debut of showing off his work and everything like that. He's published, and you know, he seems honorable to points, but then he also seems questionable. You have you know, the security officer, which is, we find out through the course of the story, spoiler warning, this is actually her, you know, old-time friend's stepfather, replaced, you know, in the lives of her and her mother, the father that passed away, and you know, sort of instigated her downward spiral. They don't get along, of course. He's security, former military, and very paranoid to the point of putting around surveillance cameras not only in his house, unbeknownst to wife and daughter, stepdaughter, but the school as well. He's proposed to do this, and you have Max, you know, interacting with her. She's interacting with the sort of bitch of the class, Victoria, very self-possessed and derogatory. She gets hers in certain elements that you can affect, and then other things, you know, it seems she has in action have a negative effect on other characters. There's this character, Kate, who is sort of from a religious upbringing, and she wants to promote abstinence in school. She gets invited to the Vortex Club, which is kind of the school elitist group, where she's roofied, and they get her on camera doing some salacious, dirty things that go against her particular character, and she becomes very depressed over this, and this is a large chunk of the story's focus in Chapter 2 called Out of Time. And it's just absolutely captivating and intriguing to be able to sort of, in the RPG framework, go around searching rooms, whether that's your room or other rooms, finding out more about the world, very little details. I mean, they have this great sort of Easter egg where, you know, the Max character's geeking out. She's a techie. She's geeking out over somebody's plasma screen, and she's talking about, ooh, I would love to watch Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within on this. You know, it's one of my favorite, most underrated sci-fi movies. And I gotta agree, I love that movie, you know, but Square-Enix having a laugh. And, you know, a bunch of little pop culture references that are part of our vernacular are just represented by this particular character and the people she interacts with. She's got this guy that's, you're not sure if he's a stalker or if he's up to stuff or if he's actually got a clean slate, called Warren, who's very much obsessed with her, texts her all the time. And my only biggest sort of, you know, downgrade of this is that I can't play it and experience it for myself. My sis and I have just watched these two gameplays of chapters 1 and 2, you know, basically as uploaded by JackSepticEye, and watching his choices through the game. And, you know, there would be different things that I would have done if I had been able to play through it. But there comes a very pivotal choice in the making that you see being built up to as, you know, basically Max has to find ways of saving her friend Chloe's life on 2 occasions. And then there's this big sort of revolving around the very depressive Kate character as this viral video is being spread around school and everything like that, showing her apparently, allegedly making out with guys, things she wouldn't have normally done unless she were drugged, and she was. There's some potential abuse hinted at with this just all-time a-hole character, Nathan, who at one point, very early in the story, and I don't think this will be too big a spoiler because it comes so early, this is basically the chief event that Max finds out she can rewind time. Sort of a butterfly effect, if you will, and they even have a butterfly in the scene that it happens as if to, you know, tip the hat to that. But basically she's in the bathroom and she sees her old friend Chloe, who she doesn't actually recognize is her old friend because it's the first time she's seen her since she's been back. And as I say, she's punked out with the blue hair and the tats and everything. But she's accosting this kid, Nathan, who's very preppy, very, you know, from a rich background and stuff like that, about apparent drug dealing or something to that effect, or borrowing money, something to that effect. I forget exactly, and it'll leave it to you guys if you end up, you know, based on this recommendation video, go and check out the game. You'll be able to find out more of the details for yourself. But she's, you know, accosting him in a blackmail sort of framework, possibly. He pulls a gun on her and actually, you know, inadvertently shoots her in the stomach. And this is where Max first has that moment of, she sort of puts her hand up like, you know, stop in the name of love, you know, and it literally stops and then reverses time, and she's able to figure out a way to save her friend's life before she even realizes it is her friend. Later, the friend saves her when, you know, she's basically reported to the principal that this kid is walking around toting a gun. The principal doesn't necessarily believe her either because this guy comes from such a prominent, you know, wealthy family in town and such. Whereas, you know, the Max character only just came back to town. She seems like a very reserved, nerdy girl, might be up to mischief and stuff. And there's a whole thing about, you know, she actually copped to smoking a doob, but the doob was not hers. And, you know, once again, more details you'll get if you decide to play the game, how that all affects the story. But the point being, it's absolutely compelling to see the way in which the game is set up to have you make the choices that will affect the playing through of the story. You know, there's sort of like a scoreboard, a percentage board at the end of each level showing you all the people who have played the game, what, you know, the percentage was that made this choice versus that choice, how the flow of the story is going, and you get sort of a preview unlocked of the next chapter. The biggest downside of this game, and I know I would be suffering immensely if I were able to play it, is that it's like months apart from chapter to chapter. The next one, as of the time of this recording, you know, basically, I think the second chapter just came out yesterday, but chapter 3 is not coming out till May. So that's quite a ways away. And I guess they figure, you know, they want to give everyone enough chance to play the game and maybe replay it, sample out different directions in the story and whatever like that. But other than that, I mean, you know, if I had sort of the means to play the game, first of all, but then if I had the patience to wait, I might even, you know, hold off playing the game until all the chapters were out. But with how sort of engrossing this is, I know if I had the means, I'd play this game today and be just exploring the world and seeing how you could use this power. The one thing, even just watching the footage, that really freaks me out, though, is calling back to that butterfly effect. If you've ever seen the film, you know that it doesn't play out well for the protagonist, if you will. We'll use air quotes there. He kind of, by the end of that film, sacrifices himself to make everyone else's lives line up for the better. And I'm not saying that's how this story is going. There's no sort of element to that effect to lead you to that thinking. But it seems like every subsequent reuse of this rewind time ability that this Max character has might be risking her own life in a similar manner. There are times where her nose starts bleeding for no apparent reason, but it's after she's done this effect. And, you know, other people are looking at her like, oh my God, what's going on? She does finally confide in her friend Chloe, the blue-haired punker chick, and but she's kind of self-possessed to a point where she's like, oh, how can we use this to our benefit? How can we mess with people? And she doesn't really see necessarily the dangers involved, because when you see, you know, in the case of watching JackSepticEye playing the game, when you see him rewind moments that he has to like choose a different path or make a different decision in, all the way back, there's like a spiral that appears up in the top left corner of the screen. There's a point where if you're watching and you're focused on the events on screen, the Max character starts like bowing her head like this forward, and you know, it seems like she has such a bad headache from this. And I'm wondering if her life is at risk as a character as well. Through the course of the story also, there is the impending tornado that began the whole thing in the prologue that seems to be a flash forward, whereas most of the game is based on rewinding time and going back into the past several steps. This seems to be something, at least by chapter 2, I think it is, or maybe the end of chapter 1, I forget exactly. But it's like 4 days away. And what, you know, how is this going to be oncoming? What exactly does it involve? I think it's interesting that you have characters in something called Vortex Club or whatever it is. Vortex being a play on time travel as well as being a play on like the event horizon of a tornado. You have the security guard who is the stepfather of the Chloe character, the punker chick again, as I say, hoarding food and like trying to make his house like a fortress and stuff. Is he maybe, you know, perceiving something's coming? It's quite odd and interesting, and calling the game Life is Strange is definitely sort of, you know, just very skating on thin ice as far as how the ramifications of this game and how the compelling nature of this game has affected me just watching it, let alone being able to play it. And I could probably ramble on for hours and hours about how just watching gameplay footage of this has intrigued me so much. It's the first game that has come along that has genuinely excited me in a very long time that I can't even play. And this is to say, even compared to like Metal Gear Solid 5, and I am a big-time MGS fan. I've played all of those games up to 4, not counting Revengeance and the handheld ones. All of the PS1, PS2, PS3 games in that series, in the main sort of, you know, crux of the storyline, I've played them all multiple times. I've done so much in those games, unlocked so much in those games, and this Life is Strange is even more compelling to me, and I would go after much sooner than an MGS5. That's how compelling a nature of this game it is to me. You know, don't be fooled, though. It's not like an action, or it's not like... It seems to be a very methodical, slow-paced game. You're really living a story, and it's a very dramatic story. There are some funny elements. Don't get me wrong, it's not just all straight drama. It's very realistic in, you know, basically showing life with a time travel aesthetic involved in it, because essentially you're just sort of living out life and you're making daily decisions. You're seeing people interact and you're either getting involved with them or not getting involved with them. You're making choices about how you're getting involved with them, and it all affects the overall time travel. Big storms are coming, sort of framework of the narrative and the story. And it gave me goosebumps. And again, I can't even play it. That's the saddest thing. I wish so badly I could. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below if you will be checking this game out, if you will check out gameplay footage, if you have the means to purchase the game and play it yourselves. Let me know what you think of it if you're going to be doing gameplays. I'd love to see them. I could probably watch this for hours with all the different intricacies and choices that can affect and change the story and the outcome. I could probably watch this for hours. In fact, I may end up going searching for other gameplays of it just to see how things work out for those people. And so yeah, otherwise I hope this video finds you well. That's enough of my yakking on this game I can never play, and hopefully one day we'll be able to, because it's that damn interesting. And I'll catch you later. Peace.